Hi everyone, this is Jude, also known as Remember. I thought today we'd go through my track Four Shots of Greenstone, which is the title track of my new album, which is coming out on September 1st. So maybe it's already out. If it's already out, go and listen to it. If it's not out yet, this is the lead single. This single is already out, so you can go and listen to that on the Dream Catalogue SoundCloud page. I've done one of these before, these sort of track breakdowns on my YouTube channel, and I enjoyed making it. So I thought we would do one for this this track. Now, I don't want to play the track all the way through because, like you can say, you can go and listen to it on SoundCloud. So I'm just going to kind of go through each individual element. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to kind of go through the elements as they're introduced rather than sort of from top to bottom, just so there is some sort of context as the track goes on. Now, this is the first time I've opened the project since when was it I last opened it? I think it was April or May of this year when I was finishing up the album. So I'm going to be kind of going through it with a blind eye and just kind of remembering, if you pardon the pun, remembering what I did as I look at it almost. So we'll start at the very beginning, which is down here, which is kind of these chords that sweep up. And they kind of go on throughout the track, actually, just kind of providing, sort of giving it the chords of the track. Let's give that a quick open to see what's going on. So it's fairly simple. You've got a wavetable, Ableton's wavetable. It's kind of like Ableton's version of Serum. It's not something I use a great deal, but what I use it mostly for is the noise Unison. It's such a unique effect that I've not come across in any other synths. If anyone else knows any other synths that do this, or an effect VST that does this effect, please let me know, because I'd like to have it in Serum, but it doesn't quite exist in the same way. So let's actually just take everything off, and you'll know I'll show you exactly what I mean. So if we turn the amount down, it was on 62, so let's get rid of that. It's really simple. There's a bit of reverb on the group here itself. And then the filter is slowly opening up on that by the looks of things. Let's have a look. Yeah, just kind of as the intro goes on, it's slowly rising up. What this effect does, so it's a unison effect, so it gives it some stereo width, but it does it with white noise. You can kind of hear it. Maybe you hear it better here. It's such a unique effect that I don't know where else you can find it. So if anyone knows anything else that does this, please tell me. Then you've got some overdrive, just to give it some harshness in the sort of upper register. And then a filter for the ends of the end of these bars, I think. Yeah, so it's where the drum cuts out. And then not quite sure what that's doing. I think it's just adding a little bit of grit. Yeah, a little bit. So also in the intro, we get a little introduction of the main melody, which I assume I use the same sort of the same synth. Yeah, okay, so it's just a filtered version of the main melody, which we'll get to in a second. The main melody was used Operator, a preset in Operator called the Plastic Marimba. Actually, we'll just jump to the melody so it makes more sense. I believe all of this sound is in the it's kind of all in the distortion, if I remember rightly. So if I just remove everything. Oh, that's great. So yeah, it's just a very dry plastic marimba sound. It's a very, I don't know how I came to make it into the sound that it is. I have no idea, couldn't tell you. We have the pitch hack, which I use. Well, maybe we'll turn the distortion on first to make it more clear. But as you can hear, the distortion's doing all the work here. Loads of reverb, huge tails. Compressing it down a little bit. And then to give it that twinkliness, we use the pitch hack, which basically I think is like a granular delay almost. It just adds these sort of like sparkly high-end notes. If you put it up, you can hear it already. It's just kind of works on its own. And then the intro melody is essentially that. I think it's just down an octave, most likely. So that's on A4. Yeah, so it's down an octave and it's just filtered, I believe. Yeah. It's exactly the same, but it's just filtered. We've also got it again. Sounds like just pure reverb on that one, combined. And then it comes into the melody. Now, while we're in the synth section, we might as well go through the synths that are introduced in this part. So we'll maybe loop off this bit here. So there's all the synths at once. So it's fairly busy. There's not many layers, but it's kind of got that sort of what's it called? Like a wall of noise effect. There's just every gap is filled with something. Okay, so I think we're going to work from the sort of all the synths will work from top to bottom now. Now we've sort of introduced the intro and we're going into the main section of the track, and we started with the synths, so we might as well work through the synths themselves. Now I think this is where a lot of the track stemmed, is between the sub and the melody, because if you listen to the track, and I'll show you here as well, they do kind of follow each other in a sense, especially that da-dum-bum. Those two kind of follow each other. Let me play them back to like next to each other. You see those two notes follow each other every time. Now this sub's not very subby. There's not too much going on here. And I don't even think I haven't even EQ'd it, which is quite strange. Probably should have. I don't know, maybe I did a low cut here. Yeah, I guess I wasn't too bothered. I kind of wanted to keep all of these frequencies here. So let's quickly break that down. doing? Keep these open. Okay, so let's turn all of these off. We start with a preset that I've made called Bass 2, apparently. I guess it's kind of that sort of Reese burial type of sort of bass sound. Nothing crazy, a little bit of chorus on there. Quite a lot of chorus, actually. It's good. Very unusual technique to do. But, you know, if it works, it works, I suppose. Yeah, it's just two saw waves, heavily detuned on the first one, second one up an octave. That's what it sounds like without the filtering. Obviously, you've got the resonance quite high, the filter cutoff sort of fairly low. It's all in the drive. Then that's running into an overdrive. Which sounds horrible. It's all in that mid-range grit. Very high drive. It's 50-50 on dynamics and dry and wet. Bass mono, just to, you know, the sub frequencies in that sound obviously then come out mono. Just so you don't get any weird phase issues. Not that it makes too much difference when you're listening to it on headphones, but if you had a nice set of speakers or a nice system, you'll definitely notice it. Got a compressor just to flatten out some of those peaks, I think. Oh, no. Correct. I stand corrected. It is a sidechain to the kick of the drums, which we'll get to soon. And then I think this auto filter here is what really rounds in the sound. Yeah. Cool. Right, next. There's nothing in these ones. I think that's for the bridge section. We'll get to that in a bit. So this, I think, is the pad from earlier on. Yep. Nothing here for the time being. Ah, yes, so the arpeggiated synth, which comes in the second half of the, I guess you could call it drop, or, you know, main section of the track, the chorus of the track. Fairly simple. Just got an arpeggiator going on, you know, on 16th notes. Wavetable, I think that's the same as the... Yeah, so it's effectively the same as the sort of the pad. Let's get rid of all the effects for a minute. Don't want to do that. So it's going through that massive reverb. So same again, it's got that noise unison on it, which really changes the dynamic of the sound entirely. That's then running into an overdrive, just to add some grit to those top ends. There's a filter for something. Oh, so when we go into the bridge section. Compressor, just to bring the volume down and flatten it off a little bit. It's not doing too much. I think it was more used just to bring the volume down. A little bit of auto pan just so it bounces left to right a little bit. And another filter, which is... I guess this filter's not being used. And then this is the one that's doing all the work when we get into the bridge section. So this is Synth Atmos, apparently. This one, I don't remember this. Okay, Synth 1. So it's a free VST that I would recommend to anyone. It's kind of really good for those sort of Blade Runner-y pads and melodies and things like that. It's very simple. It's like a very simple, simple oscillators, simple filters. It's got some nice effects actually. The distortion in it's really nice. Again, let's quickly take off the overdrive on it, and let's quickly get rid of the reverb on the group. You can see what I mean. It's following the chords of the pad. And it's got a delay on it and a chorus. Again, this one kind of gets lost. Overdrive maybe brings it out a bit more, but in the overall grand scheme of things, it's fairly redundant. Okay, so the next one is the white noise, just to fill in the gaps. Nothing crazy, just operator, just being sidechained, I think. It's being sidechained somewhere. Not sure where though. Okay, Atmos 2, what's this? Okay, so it's the same patch from before for the pads. It's exactly the same, I think. So it's just adding some upper harmony. So if we cool. Again, very simple. I mean, I reuse a lot of the same sounds in this track. Actually, it's probably a running theme that you can see so far. It's using the same stuff over and over again, but just using them in different ways, just to keep the sound palette, kind of connected and make it feel, quite whole as a track. And then we obviously did the melody already, which is just underneath. So let's jump up to the drums. And we can also talk about the drums that are introduced here too. Now, if I remember rightly, the drums for this track are a stock Ableton kit. The face melt kit. So let's try and find that in Ableton's. So it's this one here. I think I've removed some of the sounds possibly and left only the ones that I'm using, but let's play the loop. I've not changed any of the sounds out. Just shows you don't need to have, 1,000,001 sample packs to, have come up with something cool. You can just use what Ableton gives to you, whatever your DAW gives to you. It's always usually good stuff. I think Ableton kits are really nice. Definitely worth exploring. But let's have a look. I think most of this sound, like most of the drums, is in the processing. So let's kind of get rid of some of this. Instantly, you can tell a massive difference. I think these effects came with it. And there's definitely a echo on the snare too, or on the clap. Yeah, so we've got the echo effect. So that's where it sounds, fairly dry. Turn that back on. That clap echo just makes that sound bounce around left to right. Makes it linger out a little bit more. Turn these back on. Not 100% sure what these do, to be honest. I think these just give it a bit more oomph. But what gives it the mega oomph is the drum bus. Especially in that kick. It's quite thuddy originally. got the drive on the soft setting, but I think it's all in the crunch. Yeah, really makes that kick wobble. And then we've got just an EQ just to brighten it up. I find that the drum bus is really cool, but it definitely makes your sounds a little less bright. I think you can hear that fairly, especially in that hi-hat. You can hear it loses quite a lot of its top end. So we're just bringing that back a little bit, but we don't want it to, for the style of track that it is, you don't want it, I didn't want it too gritty. What am I talking about? I didn't want it too bright. I wanted it more gritty. So I think just adding that back in brightens it up, but doesn't lose its sort of rawness as such. I think then we've got just some noise, sort of. Yeah, it's just a little loop just to fill in the gaps. Give it some high register rhythmic content. And then later in the track we introduce a few more things. So let's quickly jump over here. That's just, I assume I've cut that up from a loop. Oh no, it's just a singular hi-hat sound, just to give that beat a bit more definition near the end. And we've also got a little shaker loop as well, just to fill it out on the second half. There's another drum section here, and I guess we can now bring it into the bridge section. So originally I wanted to have a live drummer come in and do some soloing, like just going crazy on the drums, and then I'd like cut it up and add them in. But scheduling reasons, it just wasn't going to happen. So I thought instead I would just take some drums I could find online. There's a really good drum pack from, his name's KJ Sakwa, and he is the drummer for Pendulum, the drum and bass group Pendulum, and a few other sort of electronic groups. So he plays acoustic drums, but in a sort of usually in electronic settings. So he has a sample pack on Splice, which is just full of break beats and drum fills and things like that. So I've just taken his a few of the loops and a few of the drum fills and just cut them up. So we'll play that on its own. Cool. So on that we have some reverb, compressions, and some EQ just to get rid of some of that kick. So we don't want it to interfere with the kick up here. The reverb just gives the drums a bit of space. And then the compression, I think that's the side chain to the kick from here, and also the don't think I meant to do that, but it's there anyway. I think it's got a side chain to a reverb send by the looks of things, but God, I couldn't tell you why. No idea. Must have been an accident, but it's there regardless. I'm going to leave it there. Close that. And then so in context with the rest of the drums. So I've actually removed some of the elements from here. So it's the same drum patterns, but just made it simpler and added a few little extra fills and things just to let these drums breathe, but also don't ruin the groove of the tune either. And in context with the rest of the sort of the synths going on in that section, let me... So there's 3 new synth elements that are introduced in this section. Let's do the first one here. So that follows the sub bass line, I think. It's very close anyway. Yeah. I assume it's the same too, yeah. So it's just got a wider distortion. I've really cranked the saturation on it too. So let's break this down actually. Well, there's a lot going on here. So let's get rid of all of these. We'll go through it one by one. So the distortion's a little bit wider. Yeah, so it takes up the, distorts the entire spectrum. Then slamming it with a saturator to really just fuck it up. Then we're getting rid of all the unnecessary frequencies for this section because it's kind of like the breakdown section. You don't want it to be too overwhelming. So it's got rid of all the lows and mids, the top end, so you're left with sort of the mid-highs, almost like a telephone. I've obviously used the cheesy speaker preset and I think I've messed around with it a little bit. Assume this is side chaining. Yep, side chaining to the kick. I've also then used a vocoder, which is quite surprising. Oh, it's just vocoding with the noise. Just for a little bit of texture. Then we've got the classic Remember phaser sound. And then some flange. To really go wild with it. Again, it kind of sits there. It's not too in your face. It's fairly low in the mix. We've kind of got this sort of funky bass line. I've called it funk slide bass. I wouldn't call it that funky, but let's play that on its own. It's got those pitch bends. Again, follows the bass line, and then a little sort of running down bit at the end. Let's have a look at that. Why did it bring up the old thing? Strange. Really simple by the looks of things. So it's just saw wave with a bandpass and notch filter, I think that is, which is kind of giving it that vocal sort of vowel sound. Bit of distortion. Oh no, I tell a lie, I've turned the distortion off. And we've also then got a compressor too, the multi-band setting, just to really slam it. Again, overdrive. Let's get rid of all of these again. As you can see, I pretty much use Ableton exclusive plugins. I mentioned that on my last breakdown on my YouTube channel, that I don't tend to use that much external stuff. I kind of like what Ableton gives me, and I think it's all very powerful, so I tend to stick with it. I know how to use it, so. Got the overdrive, just really bringing out those sort of top end, middle frequencies, especially in conjunction with the multi-band. It really makes it gritty. sidechain gets rid of the filter, gets rid of some of that top end, but still gives it the oomph. We then reintroduce some of those top ends, so it's not as harsh. It's less sort of hard, like, yeah, harsh on the ears. It's got the grit and it's got the high end, but then we slam it with a compressor, and then bass mono, just to stop those, the width of the sound being, causing phase cancellation and things like that. And then here, looks like I've bounced something to audio, so I can't tell you exactly what I used to make it, because I don't know. What it sounds like to me is this patch up an octave with a 100% reverb. And then these parts here, let's have a listen to this. Oh, okay, so there's an extra fourth part that I forgot about, and that's just the pads here that I think I've probably just used the auto pan setting, but without going it left to right. It just does a sort of volume up, volume down, almost like a tremolo. And that's just riding that one chord. And I then assume it follows these chords. Yeah, fairly simple. Again, I'm a big user of taking parts that you've already used and reintroducing them in a different way. I guess you could maybe see it as a little bit lazy rather than creating a whole new thing. But like I say, it keeps the track together. It makes it all one sound and mood. If you just use the same things but just alter them in slightly different ways. So that's pretty much most of the track. I mean, the bulk of the track's all in the synths and the drums. It's a fairly repetitive song, and I don't use too much to create it. And it's the first section is the same as the second section, apart from a few extra changes in the drums, and obviously this middle section, like the breakdown, bridge, whatever you want to call it. The rest of the track, I guess, is all just sort of bits and bobs. It's just kind of rises and cymbals and little details. Again, it's not really that many. We can break down some of these. So we've got a riser here. Nothing crazy, just kind of sweeps from one section to the next. Looks like we've got a crash cymbal here with a big old reverb, 27 seconds, slamming the compressor to really bring out those tails. Gets rid of a lot of the low end too. I think this is a vocal here, like a breath sample. It is indeed. Already had the reverb caked in it, just got rid of some of the low end, I believe. Let's have a look. Yeah, there's loads of sort of rumble down there, so I'll just tidy that up a little bit. There's a little blue thing here. Let's have a look to see what that is. Again, barely any processing on this track. I didn't realise that at the time. Like, very sparing on the EQ compared to usual. A lot of my stuff, I'm very particular about EQs and things like that. I guess sometimes you don't need it. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Not necessarily, don't need to do things for the sake of it. I can think if I look through this track and look through the groups, I can see that I've cut out a lot of low end and got rid of rumble and stuff that way. But yeah, I'm quite surprised actually, because like I said at the beginning of this video, this is the first time I've opened this project since April or May, so I'm kind of discovering it again with you. Yeah, I'm quite intrigued by my lack of processing on a lot of these samples, but I guess again, if it works, it works. Wow, that's a really short one. Again, I guess that just kind of leads from one section to another. It's probably very quiet. Yeah, it's just kind of it's almost like another little breath sample by the sound of things. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Oh yeah, so this little sample here kind of bounces from your left to your right ear when you listen to the track. Let's get rid of the distortion. Wow, there's loads of low end in that. So I've obviously cleaned that up. And then looks like that's from a Vengeance pack. Like a space sample from a Vengeance pack. If anyone, you know, is from the Bro Step days or, you know, electro house days and things like that, everyone knows what the Vengeance packs are. Still use them, obviously. I think I did that. I mentioned that in my last Remember Me video as well. Remember Me? Love Me video. I used Vengeance samples in that too. And then it just bounces from left to right. So in context. And then I reuse the same sweeps just for, you know, continuity. And, you know, the same crash samples and things like that. What have we got in this section here? What's this? Okay, so this is in the breakdown section. Just adds a little bit of, you know, glitchy, like a glitchy fill. Just adds a little bit of variety into it. It's very quiet, but it's there. Again, I think that's probably from a Vengeance pack, maybe. We've also got a reverse kick. It's something I do all the time. I'm surprised I didn't use it more throughout this track, but I guess I only did it in the breakdown. I love reverse kicks. I love the way they sort of come, you know, bring you from one section to the next. Again, the lack of processing. I'm very surprised. And it's very quiet. It's barely audible, but it's there again. We've got this big, long atmosphere sound. Again, I think that's a Vengeance pack. Let's have a listen. Yeah, it's just a vocal. Probably was used by a million trance and house producers. You know, anyone who was using Vengeance packs was using these. Again, just fills out the space. Not too loud. Especially you can really hear it here. Finally, the last section of the track is the guitars. There's only very few guitars compared to the rest of the album, so a lot of the tracks on the new album have smothered in guitars. This one only has two little bits. We've got an atmosphere, sort of paddy guitar sound. Believe it's reversed. Yeah, so that's just reversed. It's got a transient designer just to... Let's have a look, what's that doing? Softening the attacks. Then we've got amp and cabinet. Very, again, basic Ableton stuff. Got the echo, just creating some delays on the mid and sides. Compressor just to flatten it. EQ, again, standard preset. The reverb's doing all the work here, so if we take that off, I mean, it still sounds cool, but as you can hear, it's 100% wet. It goes on for 12 seconds in decay time. It's focusing mainly on the mids here. It's a completely different sound on and off. And then again, one last final compressor just to flatten it out as best as it can. Again, I'm not very good with compressors, I must admit. Don't really know what I'm doing with them. But I know that just keeping the ratio low and just kind of just slamming the threshold will just, you know, keep it flattish. Don't pretend to know I'm an expert with compressors at all. That's just not something I've ever really delved too deep into. And then finally we have a little guitar run here, which kind of follows the funky bass line, little fill at the end. So together, just to add a little flavour to the end of that section. It's not too loud, it's fairly quiet. So it's, you know, it doesn't get in the way of the track too much. It doesn't stand out, like it's not too in your face, just kind of finishes that section nicely. Other than that, that is pretty much it. Like it's a very simple track. It's not deep in its layers. It's not deep into structure. It's purely about those, you know, the pounding drums, the sort of the play between the bass line and the melody, and just it's very raw. I've noticed a lot of the tracks on this album are very raw in both sound and like also the production too. Like as you've noticed, probably I haven't EQ'd a lot of things and haven't really got too nitpicky. I've just kind of left things how they are, make sure the levels are all right, but I've not really, you know, spent too much time making sure everything sounds, you know, particularly clean or anything. Just focusing on the song itself, making it loud, making it punchy. And yeah, I think that's a running theme throughout the album too. Definitely got the classic Remember sort of melodies and sounds in there, but just used in a completely different way. And I think you'll expect that from the new album too. So the album is out on September 1st. It'll be out on cassette on the Dream Catalogue page. If it's already out, thank you for listening. And if it's not out, I hope you're looking forward to it. I'm really happy, you know, really happy and excited to get that out there and for you guys to listen. And yeah, you can listen to this single now on the Dream Catalogue SoundCloud page. All right, well, have a good rest of your day, whatever time it is. And yeah, enjoy the new album. Thank you for watching.